You may be wondering why I'm qualified to teach a course on systems thinking, but a context may help. I was born in this place over here, which is called Bulawayo, in what at the time was called Southern Rhodesia, which dates me a lot. I finished my schooling in England and from there to university in London. Upon graduating, I came back to Zimbabwe and from there to Johannesburg in South Africa. Shortly, I'll tell you a bit of the story about my time in South Africa, where I first learned about TOC, before bringing my family to Sydney, just before the dawn of the new millennium. This is South Kensington, where I studied mechanical engineering. If you've been to London, you'll recognise Hyde Park. This is the Royal Albert Hall. This is the Natural History Museum, and that's the Victoria and Albert Museum. This is the Science Museum, and there's the Royal School of Mines. Over there is the Royal College of Music. If you saw the Elton John movie Rocket Man, that was the place where he went to music school. There's the Royal College of Organists. There's the Royal College of Art. Over here is my faculty at Imperial College. It's an unbelievably rich cultural square mile, with more science Nobel laureates per square kilometre than probably anywhere else in the world. Despite this heritage, it was profoundly disappointing that nowhere did we bring together the best of what could be offered in the arts, music, humanities, and sciences. It's been a constant puzzle for me, a thread running through my life, why we treat these two cultures of the arts and the sciences so separately. Fast forward to 1994 and South Africa's first election, when Nelson Mandela became president and Princess Di was at the height of her popularity. It was a time of a lot of optimism, and pretty much anything seemed possible. That's a picture of me at that time, and that's my oldest kid on his first day at school. He's recently turned 30 and got married, so it tells you something about how quickly it all goes. That's my lovely wife, and this is the younger one who recently turned 28. At the time, I was managing director of South Africa's largest commercial refrigeration company. It's where I first learned about constraints. Because there had been so much uncertainty before the political transition, there had been very little by way of business investment. Our biggest client, a national supermarket chain, had not opened a new store in years and installed any refits until they had a better idea of how the political settlement would resolve itself. Consequently, we'd made very little investment in apprenticeships and training in the trades used by industry. Then the floodgates opened, and suddenly we had far more work than we knew how to handle. We had a big time constraint with an extensive program of work to refurbish all of the stores within an impossibly difficult timeline. We did the first tranche of stores and nearly killed everybody doing it. People worked ridiculous hours, driving vast distances to get from site to site just to keep all the plates in the air. Our work was to design and install all the refrigeration equipment you typically find in a supermarket, from the display cases to the cold rooms and from the plant rooms to the outdoor condensers. We had engineers, fridge mechanics, electricians, shop fitters, plumbers, and an assortment of trade assistants. The most complex jobs were the refurbishments, which involved ripping out the old kit in a carefully choreographed sequence so the supermarket could continue trading while we installed and commissioned the latest technology. After that first tranche of 23 stores that exhausted everyone, I went to see the National Productivity Institute in Pretoria, which, much to my relief, had a department that specialized in the theory of constraints. When I signed up, I got these two books. Of most interest to me was The Goal by Dr. Ellie Goldratt, inventor of the theory of constraints. If you haven't read The Goal, I strongly recommend you do. It's a seminal book that outlines the theory of constraints in a very accessible storytelling mode, making it easy to grasp the basic principles. The fifth discipline, a bestseller at the time, was Peter Senge's contribution to creating learning organizations. On top of operations and organizational learning and development, I discovered another essential piece to the puzzle of bringing a new operating philosophy to an organization, organizational design. I got introduced to the requisite organization by a colleague who had seen it in action in the Australian Army. It was developed by Elliot Jakes, a psychiatrist, industrial psychologist, and academic. He coined the term the midlife crisis and uncovered some profound insights for organizations too. I was utterly convinced of the TOC approach's logic, but could only get my CEO to the pilot on two conditions. If the project failed, I would not only lose my job, but I'd also personally have to foot the NPR's bill. I'm happy to say that the results were spectacular. Expected to take 70 days, we brought the project in 26 days early. I was so impressed I resigned and immersed myself in the theory of constraints, setting up shop as an independent productivity consultant. I started with SMEs, progressively applying my skills to more extensive assignments. It's been my privilege over these years to have dealt with companies such as those on the wall there. Generally speaking, the results have been pretty good. One of the big puzzles that I've always had is how to make a new method stick. How do you make it sustainable? How do you get people to move from their accepted mental model, even one that clearly isn't working for them, to one that can achieve their goal? These are some of the different business domains in which I've worked. When you look at those percentages, you're talking about results that are north of 25%. Admittedly, what's not in there are the projects which didn't work. If it didn't work, it was always the case because of the social and behavioral aspects rather than the technical side. Hence the need for a disciplined approach to organizational learning. I take full responsibility for those occasions when its matters didn't turn out as planned. It's up to the intervenor to create the difference and inspire people towards reaching for an audacious goal. Almost everyone who's ever done the work of adequately understanding the theory of constraints is completely mystified as to why it isn't the primary way everybody plans and executes their work. For consistent gains of 25% and more, as much as it's about rigorous theory and its associated methods and tools, it's also about the strong leadership required to learn a new way of working. When we look at the theory, we'll see this is not a social theory constructed out of the search for correlation. It's hardcore physics based on the immutable laws of cause and effect. I wrote a book called More Than Just Work, in which I offer a pathway to take advantage of this revolution in operating philosophy. In the more than 20 years in which I've been working on systems thinking in general and TOC in particular, I felt ready to share some of the insights I've gained in exploiting these innovations in productivity for good. Central to the book and my purpose in life is the idea of just work. I'd like to read to you the Just Work Manifesto as a declaration of my intention for this workshop and beyond. Just work includes my belief that it's possible to be just at work, to do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Everyone has the right to be well managed. What might such a radical proposition as everyone has the right to be well managed mean? I figure it means helping the people you lead through your management hierarchy to properly understand the context of the work they're doing. They feel connected to the overall purpose of the enterprise and are aligned to its vision and values. They work to arrive rather than arrive to work. They're empowered with the requisite authority over the resources required to acquit all of that for which you hold them accountable. You know what you have called for is both reasonable and possible, given the human and material resources you place at their disposal. They have a deep sense of the significance of what they're doing and experience the world as a better place for them being in it. They feel safe to make mistakes while exploring new ways of being and doing. They're inspired by the prospect of continuous learning and growth.